What happens when Europe attempts to play economic hardball with the world's industrial powerhouse? Spoiler alert. It does not end well. The EU believed it could tame the dragon by slapping tariffs on Chinese electric cars EVs. But guess what? China did not simply accept the damage. It retaliated strongly. With the cancellation of 150,000 EV orders, Beijing delivered a clear message. Meddle with us, and we'll show you who's truly in control. But here's the truth. This isn't just about vehicles. It's about who will control the future of global trade, sustainability, and power. And if you believe Europe is prepared for what comes next, strap up because you are in for a trip. Let's get started. This is not simply a commercial dispute, it's a geopolitical thriller. The EU, desperate to defend its faltering car sector, imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles under the pretense of fair competition. But is that fair? Or is Europe simply afraid of a competition who is light years ahead? We're focusing on the automotive business today since the United States and Europe have lately chastised China for unjustly subsidizing its electric vehicle industry. In reality, the European Commission's anti-subsidy probe will conclude in the coming weeks, and Brussels is likely to respond. However, with yearly sales of electric vehicles currently exceeding 30% of all automobiles in China, the attitude there remains positive, as our correspondent Stephen McDonald observed. China's retaliation was quick and severe. 150,000 EV orders were completed. That is not merely revenge, it is a strategic masterstroke. The vibrations in Europe's economy are already being felt, as is the much-touted green transformation. That can also be on the line. Why does this matter? Because this is more than simply a battle over automobiles. It is about who makes the rules for global commerce. It is about economic survival, industrial dominance, and whether Europe can maintain its position in a rapidly changing world. To properly comprehend the stakes, let us begin with the EU's argument for the levies. Was it about justice or a desperate attempt to protect a weak industry? The EU's official line is straightforward. They advocate for fair competition. But probe a bit further, and the narrative becomes murkier. Tariffs were imposed based on the assumption that Chinese automakers are dumping EVs. Due to generous government subsidies, they are being sold for less than market value. Does it sound plausible? But this is when it comes apart. Yes, Chinese EV manufacturers benefit from subsidies, but they are part of a long-term national strategy. China sees EVs as more than just autos. They represent the future of mobility, sustainability, and global trade. Decades ago, China selected EVs as a key sector, investing billions in R&D, infrastructure, and battery technology. In contrast, Europe lagged. While China was developing supply networks and honing manufacturing processes, European automakers were sticking to their traditional combustion engines. Even now, producing an EV in Europe is 40% more expensive than in China due to fragmented supply chains, greater labor costs, and antiquated infrastructure. Let us not ignore the irony here. The EU accuses China of providing subsidies. But what about European history? Over the decades, fossil fuel companies have received billions in subsidies, sustaining an industry that is clearly on its way out. Why is it fair when Europe does something but not when China does? In reality, Europe's tariffs are motivated by fear rather than justice. Fear of losing dominance. Fear of falling behind. However, the decision has prompted a response from China, which is sending shockwaves across Europe's economy. Let's speak about the aftermath. What does scrapping 150,000 EV orders imply for the European economy? When China declared that it will cancel 150,000 EV orders bound for Europe, the message was obvious. This game may be played by two players. However, the repercussions of this ruling extend far beyond a simple commercial dispute. Take Spain as an example. The automobile sector is the backbone of the economy, accounting for 10% of GDP and employing hundreds of thousands of people. Catalan and Valencian factories rely largely on imported components, many of which are sourced from China. With over 150,000 orders abandoned, Spain's manufacturers face higher prices and dwindling profitability. But it's not all about Spain. The rippling effects may be felt throughout Europe. Higher production costs, supply chain delays, and heightened competition for remaining orders are creating a perfect storm for an industry that is already struggling to move to electric vehicles. Consumers are also being impacted. Fewer imports result in higher pricing, making EVs less accessible at a time when Europe requires widespread adoption to accomplish its climate objectives. Then there's the political repercussions. Countries such as Italy and Greece, who are already struggling economically, are beginning to oppose the EU's tariff policy. They say that these regulations benefit northern European sectors at the expense of the rest of the Union, causing further divides within the EU. China's move was more than just canceling orders. It was a deliberate blow at Europe's economic solidarity. The greater issue remains: can Europe withstand this economic downturn, or has it misjudged its reliance on Chinese imports? To uncover the answer, we must first understand why Chinese EVs now dominate the market. Are China's EVs too advanced for Europe to compete? Before we go any further, tell us whether you're enjoying the video. If so, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos regarding global geopolitics. Let us now proceed. This is the ugly reality. Chinese electric vehicles are not only cheaper, but also better. Companies such as BYD and NIO are pushing the limits of what an electric vehicle can achieve, from improved battery technology to AI-powered capabilities right out of a science fiction film. The foundation of this domination is battery technology. Chinese companies like CATL, the world's largest battery maker, have transformed the sector. By producing high-density, long-lasting batteries on a large scale, they have given Chinese EVs a performance advantage that European manufacturers are trying to match. But it's not just about batteries. China's vertical integration model, which includes everything from raw material extraction to final assembly, provides its automakers a significant edge. This strategy lowers costs, assures quality, and accelerates production. In contrast, Europe relies on a fragmented supply chain that spans numerous nations, increasing prices and generating delays. Then there's the consumer experience. Chinese electric vehicles are more than simply practical, they are also enjoyable. Sleek designs, AI integration, and low price make them popular among younger tech-savvy purchasers. European automakers, saddled with high prices and outdated production processes, are simply unable to compete. But what's the true truth? This isn't just about vehicles, it's about who controls the future. While Europe waits, China is moving ahead, making EVs the focus of its green transition strategy. And speaking of green objectives, this gets us to the next issue. Could Europe's green transition stop in the absence of inexpensive Chinese electric vehicles? Europe has staked its status as a world leader on climate action. But there is a catch. Making EVs more available to the general public is critical to meeting the country's lofty environmental goals. And this is where Chinese imports have made a significant difference. Affordable Chinese EVs have helped to reduce prices, making sustainable mobility a possibility for millions of Europeans. But with tariffs in place and imports drying up, those benefits may be reversed. Consumers who face increased pricing may postpone EV purchases, lowering adoption rates and jeopardizing Europe's emissions reduction efforts. And it's not just about vehicles. Electric cars are a key component of Europe's overall green plan, ranging from renewable energy integration to smart city development. Without a consistent supply of inexpensive automobiles, the entire ecosystem risks collapsing. The irony here is difficult to miss. The EU's tariffs, which are intended to defend European industry, may wind up undermining its environmental aims. Bloomberg describes it as a lose-lose situation in which Europe compromises both its economic and its climate goals. Meanwhile, China is doubling down on its green initiatives. With significant expenditures in renewable energy, EV infrastructure, and battery recycling, it isn't simply staying up, it is setting a worldwide norm. As Europe fails, Beijing looks east, forming new relationships that have the potential to change the global balance of power. Is China's emerging partnership with Russia Europe's biggest nightmare? As Europe seeks to isolate China, Beijing strengthens relations with Moscow. The stats speak for themselves. Chinese automobile sales in Russia have increased by 60%, filling the hole left by Western automakers. But this collaboration goes beyond automobiles. China is creating trade lines that bypass Europe altogether, expanding its economic connection with Russia and Central Asia, thanks to programs like the Belt and Road Initiative. This is not merely a trading approach. It is a geopolitical masterstroke. For Europe, the consequences are sobering. By bringing China closer to Russia, the EU risks being excluded in global trade negotiations. As the Russo-Chinese alliance strengthens, Europe's power to influence global markets and policy weakens. The issue now is whether Europe can adapt or has already lost the game. Let's pull everything together. Europe believed it could tame the dragon, but the dragon is spouting fire. By canceling 150,000 EV orders, China demonstrated that it is not simply a rival, but also a world leader in production, innovation, and strategy. The EU's tariffs were supposed to defend its industry, but they've rather revealed its weaknesses. Slower ecological transitions, economic volatility, and a growing Russo-Chinese alliance all lead to a future in which Europe must play catch-up. Meanwhile, China is demonstrating that it is not just prepared for the future, but also actively working to develop it. The question is no more whether Europe can outperform China, but whether it can survive in a world where China sets the rules. And it's time for the EU to wake up. We'd want to take a minute to thank you everyone for your comments and ideas. Your thoughts have always impressed us. Do you believe the EU has learned its lesson? Why would it work now? Will it sacrifice its ego for the sake of its inhabitants' comfort? Let us know in the comments section. Would you want to see more videos like this one? If so, please like, share, and subscribe for future material. Until the next video, stay tuned.